This episode of Trifles is made possible by listeners like you who support us on Patreon and Substack. To learn more, go to patreon.com/trifles or trifles.substack.com.
Welcome to Trifles, a weekly podcast about the Sherlock Holmes stories.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Yes, the lodger was veiled, the face was yellow, and the valley was fearsome, but there are so many other details to pick apart in the stories.
Pray, be precise as to details.
You know the plots, but what about the minutiae? Have you ever stopped to wonder what kind of medical practice Dr. Watson actually ran? Or about the number of Holmes's monographs? Or how much the rent was at 221B Baker Street?
You are very inquisitive, Mr. Holmes.
It is my business to know what other people don't know.
Scott Monty and Bert Wolder will have the answers to these questions and more in Trifles.
The game's afoot.
Episode 428, British Businesses. Well, hello and welcome to Trifles, the Sherlock Holmes podcast, where we get into the details in the Sherlock Holmes stories. I'm Scott Monty.
I'm Bert Wolder.
And Bert, have you Britished up your business?
No, but I've brushed up my Shakespeare.
Brush up your Shakespeare. Start learning him now.
Oh, yes.
Excellent. That was from Call Me Kate, right?
Call Me Kate.
Yeah.
No, that was from, wasn't that Guys and Dolls?
Guys and Doll. That's the one.
There's Call Me Madam, and there's Kiss Me Kate.
Kiss Me Kate. That's what I was thinking.
You've combined a number of things.
No,
and of course that
why? Kiss Me Madam. That's
and of course that great Sherlockian musical Irene. Nobody remembers Irene. Well, who would remember it? But it goes back, I think, to the 1920s.
Does it really?
The musical, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty sure. I think, didn't Debbie Reynolds do that as a movie?
Perhaps.
Somebody like that did.
Is that from
that covers this episode.
Is that where Goodnight Irene comes from?
Oh, no, that's a different song. That's an old song. Oh, no, Debbie Reynolds did the unsinkable Molly Brown.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah. Well, anyway, before we unsync this show, or sync this show, I should say.
When are we going to do the musical version of Trifles?
Musical Trifles? No one wants a musical Trifles. People barely want a speaking version of Trifles.
Speaking Trifles.
Oh, well, this is going to be a fun episode. We've talked about businesses before in a few episodes. I think if we look back into our archives, actually just a few episodes ago, in January, episode 419, we looked at partnerships, businesses that were formed as partnerships. And all the way back, I think in season 6, we looked at strange business. Episode 286 in season 6. Things like artificial kneecaps and the Franco-Midland Hardware Company and New Zealand Consolidated. So with that in mind, we thought we would look at just some random British businesses that were named in the canon, and there were quite a few. And perhaps we'll have a little fun with this. We'll do it almost quiz-like style to see if we can identify which story each of these businesses came from, and perhaps what the business was. So stay tuned for that in just a moment, where we'll test our knowledge as well as yours. If you would like to support the show, you can do that via Patreon at trifles.com, at patreon.com/trifles, or on Substack at trifles.substack.com. There are a variety of price points there from which you can choose for as little as $1 a month. If you believe in what we're doing and you want to see this keep going, just sign up. We've got links in the show notes, so pick the platform that works for you and let us know how we can continue to improve. Our communities in each one of these areas, our paid subscribers have access to discussions with each other. They can comment on our shows. And if anyone happens to leave us a suggestion for a topic for a show and we use it on the air, we will send you a prize, something to show our appreciation. So check it out and see what works for you. Okay, business in the canon. We're not talking about funny business now. Although maybe humorous how we're discussing it. I don't know.
Well, once it becomes clear the absolute lack of knowledge and memory that we have about some of these companies, I think that could be humorous.
Painfully clear. Well, look, let's start out the discussion by just putting this premise in there. Sherlock Holmes was an independent businessman. He was an entrepreneur. He a solopreneur, if you will, although he did bring Watson along. It's not clear if Watson was included for tax purposes or, as an employee, or if he simply was a freelancer himself. Kind of a freeloader, maybe sometimes. But
did Watson fill out a W-9? Oh no, never mind.
I don't know what the associated form in the UK might be, but so Sherlock Holmes is the first example of someone that we have in the canon who is running his own business, and there are, I think, a lot of solopreneurs in the canon, as well as firms that are corporations or are made up of multiple people. It might be interesting to look at some examples of each. So, Bert, why don't you kick us off in the style that you choose with some other British businesses?
British businesses. Well, it's a wonderful, if you pull out a list, as we've done, of British firms, one of the things you realize in the world of Sherlock Holmes, how important these names are individually. Each one is unique, and the interesting thing is you wonder what they were actually based on. But the choice of these names, is an important element of the creation of the reality of the world of Holmes and Watson, and why so many people, and why even today when we read the cases, you have this appearance of these real people in this real setting. But just looking at a list, and I must admit, I remember 0.0% of these companies. But the interesting thing is there are some individual names. So what was the business that Lesurier was in? Lesurier. Lesurier.
Lesurier. Manufacturer of suits.
Of leisure suits.
Yes.
The inventor of the leisure suit.
The Leisure Suit Larry. That's his formal name.
Lesurier and his sister Polly and her sister Esther. Yeah, no. Actually, Lesurier, mentioned in Silver Blaze, was a milliner. Lesurier was the one that had the bill for the expensive frock.
Yes. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Wow, Madame Lesurier, if I recall, was it not?
Oh, well, maybe. I don't remember if there was a madame, but Lesurier was the milliner who.
That's a good one.
Produced the expensive frock.
Well, similarly, let's see. We've got. How about if I said to you, Latimers?
Oh, Latimers. That sounds familiar. Is that a tobacconist?
No, it is not.
Latimers. Boy, that does sound familiar.
Yeah.
Latimers. Well, obviously, I don't remember.
They are a boot maker.
Oh, right. Did they make... No, I was going to say Sir Henry Baskerville, but not his.
No, that's Myers of Toronto.
Yes, sure.
And this is a good preview because we're going to have another episode in I think 2 more episodes. In other words, the episode after next, we will be looking at North American businesses in the canon. So Sir Henry did get his boots from Toronto, but Latimer's was in Oxford Street.
That was Lady Frances Carfax.
Yes, that's where Watson got his boots.
Right.
Holmes asked, but why Turkish? Gazing fixedly at my boots.
Yes, one of the great comic moments in the canon.
Why Turkish? And can you imagine Watson with Turkish boots?
Pointy slippers.
He said English.
I say, Watson, where's my tobacco? Oh, I see. You're wearing it on your right
it's
foot.
The English slipper. Mix those up with your Turkish boots. No, Holmes said, why Turkish? And Watson said, I noticed him looking at my boots. English, I answered in some surprise. I got them at Latimer's in Oxford Street. Of course, Holmes had looked at the way the bows were tied, the bootlaces were tied, and deduced that Watson was at the Turkish bath. So,
well, here's a company name that really is a great springboard to lots of possibilities. Marx and Company, M-A-R-X, Marx and Company.
Oh, they were in the entertainment business, right?
Right, the four brothers. Yeah. But
Groucho's father, well, all of the Marx brothers' father was actually a tailor.
Yes, he was.
Years.
He was. They called him Frenchie. Yeah.
And what about the Marx here? Is it
Marx and Company? They are outfitters, so they do produce clothing. And Wisteria Lodge, Marx and Company.
I like that. Well, how about this one? Tavernier.
Oh, boy. These things are so familiar. Tavernier.
Yeah. Well, I'll bet if I said another business in this same industry, you would instantly get it. Meunier of Grenoble.
Oh, well, but Oscar Grenet, I mean, he did the wax.
That's right. So where
the
would
bust of Sherlock
Tavernier,
Holmes,
the French modeler, have been mentioned?
The French modeler, Tavernier.
There's one other instance of a wax bust in the canon.
Of a wax bust in the canon. What's the other instance?
Well, what's the one that Meunier of Grenoble did?
Well, that's the empty house.
You think of another time when Sherlock Holmes's bust was used as a decoy?
Oh, that's not Mazarin Stone,
That is Mazarin Stone.
Oh, and it was a different
modeler.
Different modeler.
Yeah.
Oh, so Holmes had a whole collection of them.
well, after the one got shot through the head, I think he had to replace it.
Exactly, Monsieur Holmes. How many of these do you wish to purchase? Well, I think 6 will do it. Considering how frequently things come in the window at Baker Street, I think 6 will do it right now.
I'll place 2 of them across the sitting room from each other. They can have a dialogue. It's a pretty little thing, said Holmes, advancing toward the image. Tavernier, the French modeler, made it. He is as good at waxworks as your friend Strabenzi is at air guns.
Strabenzi. Oh, that's pretty funny.
Then there's another one. So von Herder and Strabenzi, in the air gun business. Who knew there were so many air gun manufacturers?
Yes, and who knew that perhaps someone who wrote stories for a living had difficulty remembering the name of firms used in the past and just decided to invent a new one. Well, who were Bovingtons? What did Bovingtons do? There's a great name. Bovington. Bovingtons.
Oh, brother, they make the ale, don't they?
Oh, Boddingtons. Well, that's pretty good beer. Bovingtons is in Lady Frances Carfax, and like Jabez Wilson, they were pawnbrokers.
Well, there you go. Bovingtons or Bovingtons. Interesting.
Bovingtons, yes.
Yeah, and Wilson himself, an individual in business rather than a firm, which explains why it was so easy to take advantage of him in the Red-Headed League. Interesting.
Well, and speaking of individuals, how about Sam Brewer? Do you remember Sam Brewer? There's a great name.
Oh, my goodness.
You would think he was a brewer, but no.
No,
not nominative determinism in that case.
I am blanking on saying was he in, it's one of the later stories, I want to say. Three Gables?
Shoscombe Old Place.
Shoscombe. Oh, that's right.
Moneylender.
Moneylender. He was the bookie.
Yeah.
That's a good one. So here's another one. This should be pretty easy. We use this as a clue in one of our canonical couplets on "I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere." Ionides.
Ionides. Oh, that's Egyptian cigarettes.
That is. So if I said, "Can you name two other tobacconists in the canon?" Would you be able to name them?
Tobacconists.
Mm-hmm.
There's Mortimer's in the Red-Headed League.
That's right.
I remember that, but that's the only other one I remember.
And then there's another one, because evidently Watson only shops on Oxford Street. This one was named in the Hound of the Baskervilles when Holmes found the cigarette butts outside of his little hovel. Bradley's of Oxford Street.
Oh, Bradley's. Marianne Bradley's.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, if you lived on Baker Street, where else would you shop except Oxford Street? That makes perfect sense. Well, how about, now here's an individual name. This is a wonderful one, I think, because it's just 5 letters. Sutro. Do you remember Sutro? Sutro?
Oh, my goodness.
What they did. Very unusual name for this profession.
Sutro. Is this back with Leisure Suit Larry?
No, it's in Three Gables, and apparently it's a barrister or a lawyer, Sutro, which is unusual because you normally have these firms, that are
right,
multiple names. Sutro
is a good one.
Lawyers or barristers?
Lawyers, barristers, yeah. Well, of course, that we mentioned in the intro. We mentioned Morrison, and Dodd. We know if we want to stay in the lawyer business, John Hector McFarlane was a solicitor in the Norwood Builder, and of course Jonas Oldacre himself as a builder. Was Oldacre part of a firm? That I'm thinking.
No, I don't think so.
It was just him.
Nobody wanted to work with him.
Yeah, can you imagine? So we know in terms of restaurants, there were a number of restaurants mentioned in the canon. Simpson's was one that was a very real restaurant in London. But what if I said to you, Stimson and Company?
Stimson. Oh, that's a familiar name.
Yeah. All of these, there's this veil of familiarity about them where you go, yeah, I remember reading, but I don't remember what story it was in. I don't remember what they did.
Was Stimson's, did that do something with animals? Stimson?
Well, I suppose you could say they did some form of taxidermy.
I have a vague sense of it, but that's all I know.
They are undertakers.
Oh, undertakers. That is a form of taxidermy.
Yes. Yeah, well, you're not putting your beloved on display, unfortunately.
And gardening. They will plant you. Yeah.
Yeah, we ordered her funeral to be carried out by Stimson and Company of the Kennington Road, who will bury her at 8:00 tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Who were they burying?
Oh, Lady Frances Scarfax.
That's right. And a poor old woman of 90.
Yes.
Two for the price of one. That was a good one.
Yes. Oh, now here's an easy one that
Yeah.
you should probably
You
get.
would think. Let's see.
Cooks.
Hooks.
COOK''S. Cooks.
Hooks.
And I bet if I give you another name that isn't used associated with Cooks, you'd figure it out probably. Thomas Cooks.
You would think.
You could
Thomas
say.
Maps, of course.
Yeah, well, the travel
travel,
agent.
or-
Yeah, Cooks. That's the Lady Frances Carfax again.
Oh, that's it. Well, there are quite a few different types of businesses in Lady Frances Carfax. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, here's another one. This is a really obscure one. At least it was to me. Who was apprenticed to Venner and Matheson, the well-known firm of Greenwich?
Benner and that's not from the Stockbroker's Clerk, is it?
It does sound an awful lot like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It is in that same era of stories, I will say.
Venner and well, that's another very familiar name. Venner and Matheson.
That comes from The Engineer's Thumb.
Oh.
Victor Hatherley.
Oh, right. Hydraulic engineer.
Yes. He was apprenticed to Venner and Matheson for 7 years. And
Long
then
time.
yeah, that is a long time. Of course, engineering is intricate work, but he left after 7 years and opened his own firm. Again, a single person firm being the subject or the target of some villain. Colonel Lysander Stark in that case.
What about Fordham? If I said Fordham to you, does that ring any bells?
Fordham.
Fordham. Fordham.
Gosh, no, I am blanking on Fordham.
Fordham. Is another
Fordham
one of these
University
barristers.
Press thing. Yeah.
Another one of these barristers or solicitors from the Five Orange Pips. Fordham, the Horsham lawyer.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's a good one. Okay. How about let's go to our friends in the Naval Treaty. You remember the Naval Treaty?
I do.
There is there's a family in the Naval Treaty named Harrison. Right? Joseph Harrison.
Right.
What did he do?
Joseph Harrison in the Naval Treaty. What did he do? Well, I don't remember what he did.
He was
Naval
an Iron Master.
Iron Master. Where do we
Yes.
encounter him in the
Excuse
story?
me. His father was an Iron Master. So
And his son was an Iron Junior, was it?
an Iron Apprentice, I guess.
His son took in iron.
We met Miss Harrison, who of course was the
Oh, right.
fiance of Percy Phelps. Holmes says, yes, she's a good sort, or I'm mistaken. She and her brother are the only children of an Iron Master somewhere up Northumberland Way.
Oh, okay.
Got engaged to her when traveling last winter. She came down to be introduced to his people with her brother as escort.
What about, here's another one of these partnerships that have very really interesting and good names. How about Gross and Hankey?
Gross and Hankey.
Yeah, Gross and Hankey, Hankey.
Gross and Hankey, they were, I remember this one, they were responsible for the disposal of medical waste after the great plague outbreak of 1887.
Yeah,
I think they were in charge of the Black Formosa corruption cleanup.
That's right, and that's how handkerchiefs developed the nickname hanky. That's exactly right. That looks pretty gross.
And
Where's your hanky? Gross and hanky, odd names for jewelers.
Jewelers.
In Scandal in Bohemia.
Okay.
Yep.
Who was shopping at a jewelry store in Scandal in Bohemia? I think.
Well, that's good old Godfrey Norton.
Yes, had to get that wedding band or the engagement ring. I don't know which it was, but that is a good one. Okay, well, I feel like we're rounding the bend here. We've covered a whole variety of categories.
Yeah. Here's an unusual one that you wouldn't associate with the category of what they did at all. If I told you a little bit later today I'm going to go over to Ivy Plant, what would you think I was doing?
Ivy Plant?
Ivy Plant, actually a name of
a nursery
of a business in the canon. Ivy Plant.
Ivy Plant. Now she was a madam, wasn't she?
You're thinking of olive oil. No, this is Ivy Plant. Ivy Plant in the second stain was
it's the factory where
public
they made
house. A public house.
That was the factory where they made artificial trees for indoors.
That was Morse Hudson. Ivy Plant, yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Second stain.
Considered that one before.
Isn't it an odd name for a tavern or an inn or something like that?
It is. Well, maybe if you're in the spy business.
Ivy Plant.
There's an Ivy Plant. Very good. Well, businesses galore. Do you have a favorite business? Write in and tell us. Email us at trifles@ihearofsherlock.com. Perhaps there's a business name that sticks in your mind for some interesting reason. We'd be delighted to hear from you. And if you do write in, we'll include those comments in 2 episodes' time when we talk about North American businesses. Meanwhile, as you say about desserts served in British restaurants, it's just a trifle.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Please join us again next week for another installment of Trifles. Show notes are available on SherlockHolmesPodcast.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and be sure to check out our longer show, I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, where we interview notable Sherlockians and share news of the Sherlockian world.
You've taken my breath away, Mr. Holmes.
As you perceive, we have taken you into our confidence over some very private business.